What if I told you that the greatest minds in ancient Rome refused to chase relationships? That emperors, philosophers, and warriors discovered a secret that made them immune to the desperation that plagues modern men? Here's something that'll shock you. 70% of men in relationships today report feeling anxious about losing their partner. 70%. They're living in quiet terror, checking their phones, reading into every text, slowly losing themselves. The ancient Stoics knew something we've forgotten, something powerful, something that modern dating culture deliberately hides from you, because if you knew it, you'd be impossible to manipulate. But before I reveal what that is, you need to understand the trap that's been set for you and why you're probably already caught in it. Picture this. There's a man who wakes up every morning, and the first thing he does is check his phone. Not for work, not for news. He's checking to see if she texted him back. His stomach tightens when he sees nothing. He spends his morning commute, replaying their last conversation, analyzing every word, wondering what he did wrong. By the time he gets to work, he's already exhausted, and the day hasn't even started. At lunch, he scrolls through her social media. Who's she with? Who liked her photos? His mind spins with scenarios, each one worse than the last. He tells himself he'll focus on work, on his goals, on becoming better. But within minutes, he's back in his head, crafting the perfect text message. That sounds casual, but isn't. Nothing about this is casual. He's built his entire emotional foundation on whether another person validates him. When evening comes, he sits on his couch, phone in hand, waiting. Not living, just waiting. His hobbies feel meaningless. His ambitions feel distant. Everything in his world has been reorganized around one central question: does she want me? This is what modern dating culture has created. Men who are terrified of being alone. Men who have outsourced their worth to someone else's opinion. Men who've forgotten how to stand on their own 2 feet. And here's the cruel part. The more desperate you become, the less attractive you are. It's a trap that tightens the more you struggle against it. 2,000 years ago, Marcus Aurelius walked through the streets of Rome. He was the most powerful man in the world, yet he watched couples clinging to each other in the marketplace, with something close to pity. He saw men abandoning their principles to please their lovers. He watched them surrender their freedom for the temporary comfort of not being alone. And he wrote in his private journal, "How much time he gains who does not look to see what his neighbor says or does or thinks, but only at what he does himself to make it just and holy." So what did the Stoics do differently that made them immune to this trap? How did they build a life where they were powerful, respected, and genuinely content, whether they were with someone or not? Epictetus was born a slave. Let that sink in for a moment. He was property, owned by another human being. He had no freedom, no rights, no control over his own life. His master was cruel, and one day, in a fit of rage, deliberately broke Epictetus's leg. The injury never healed properly. For the rest of his life, Epictetus walked with a limp, carrying the physical reminder of his powerlessness. But here's where the story gets interesting. Despite being in chains, despite the abuse, despite having every reason to feel broken and dependent, Epictetus discovered something that would change philosophy forever. He realized that while his body could be imprisoned, his mind was absolutely free. No one could touch it, no one could control it, and most importantly, no one could complete it or diminish it. He was already whole. This is the radical teaching that Epictetus passed down through the ages. You are already complete. Not when you find the right person, not when you achieve the right status, not when you finally get that text back. Right now, exactly as you are. You are a complete human being, fully capable of living a meaningful, powerful life. Think about what this means. Most men structure their lives like a house of cards, carefully balancing their self-worth on whether someone else approves of them. One rejection, one breakup, one cold shoulder, and the whole thing collapses. They built their foundation on sand, on something outside their control. The Stoics did the opposite. They built a fortress. Brick by brick, they constructed their sense of self on things they actually controlled, their character, their choices, their responses to life. When you understand that you're complete, something incredible happens to your relationships. They stop being about filling a void and start being about sharing abundance. You're not desperately searching for someone to make you whole. You're not clinging to another person because without them you'd fall apart. Instead, you're offering something genuine, the gift of your presence, your strength, your authentic self. Here's the paradox that confuses most people. The less you need someone, the more authentic the connection becomes. When you're with someone because you've chosen them, not because you need them to feel okay, the relationship transforms. There's no manipulation, no games, no desperate energy that pushes people away. Just two complete individuals choosing to walk together. But I know what you're thinking. What about loneliness? Isn't being alone supposed to be painful? Isn't the whole point of being human to connect with others? The Stoics had an answer to this too, and it's not what you'd expect. There's a critical distinction the Stoics made that most people miss. They understood the difference between loneliness and solitude. These aren't the same thing. Loneliness is feeling isolated, disconnected, empty, even when you're surrounded by people. It's a wound, a cry for something you believe is missing. Solitude, on the other hand, is a choice. It's intentional time with yourself. And the Stoics discovered that this time was pure power. Marcus Aurelius ruled the Roman Empire. Every single day, hundreds of people demanded his attention. Senators needed decisions. Generals needed orders. The entire machinery of the ancient world's greatest superpower required his constant input. But Marcus had a practice that he protected above all else. Every morning, before the chaos began, he spent time alone, not with advisors, not with family, alone with his thoughts. In those quiet hours, something happened that was impossible in the noise of constant companionship. Marcus Aurelius forged his character. He examined his choices. He planned his day according to his principles, not other people's expectations. He reminded himself of what mattered and what didn't. In solitude, he became the man who could handle everything the world threw at him. The emperor who history would remember as one of the wisest rulers who ever lived didn't become that person in crowds. He became that person alone. Here's what happens in genuine solitude that's impossible when you're constantly seeking connection. Clarity emerges. When there's no one to impress, no one to perform for, no one whose approval you're chasing, you finally see yourself clearly. The masks fall away. The pretense dissolves. You meet yourself, perhaps for the first time, and in that meeting, you develop something irreplaceable: self-knowledge. With self-knowledge comes the development of character. Think about it like forging steel. You can't strengthen metal in comfortable temperatures. You need intense heat and pressure. Solitude is that forge. It's uncomfortable at first, because you're confronting yourself without distraction. Every weakness, every fear, every area where you've been lying to yourself becomes visible. But that discomfort is growth, not deficiency. Let me give you a modern example. There's a man I know who restructured his entire life around this principle. Every morning, before checking his phone, before scrolling social media, before jumping into the demands of the day, he spends 1 hour alone. just him, a journal, and silence. In the first weeks, his mind screamed at him. He felt anxious, restless, like he was wasting time. That was his conditioning fighting back, but he pushed through. After 30 days, something shifted. He started noticing patterns in his thoughts. He realized how much of his behavior was driven by fear of what others thought. He began making decisions based on his values rather than external pressure. His business improved because his thinking became clearer. His relationships improved because he stopped bringing neediness into them. He became, in his own words, unshakable. Your mind will resist this at first. It's been trained to seek constant stimulation, constant validation, constant connection. When you remove those crutches, it panics. It tells you you're missing out. It tells you you're going to end up alone and miserable. That's not truth talking. That's fear. And the Stoics taught that the only way through fear is directly through it. The practice is simple but not easy. Dedicate time each day to intentional solitude. Not scrolling your phone in a quiet room, not half present while your mind races about someone else, genuine presence with yourself. In that space, you develop the mastery of your own mind. You become the kind of man who doesn't need external validation because he's validated himself through his character and choices. Now here's where it gets interesting. The Stoics discovered something about desire that changes everything about how we approach relationships. Seneca was one of the wealthiest men in Rome. He had friendships with emperors, owned vast estates, and lived surrounded by luxury. But he wrote something that seems to contradict everything we think we know about having relationships. It is, not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor. Here's the psychological trap that keeps most men imprisoned. The more you need something, the less you actually have it. This sounds backwards until you really think about it. When you desperately need a relationship, when your entire sense of worth depends on someone choosing you, you radiate that desperation. People feel it. They sense the neediness, the grasping energy, and it repels them. Paradoxically, you're intense. Desire for connection becomes the very thing that prevents connection. Let me show you what this looks like in practice. Imagine two men meeting the same woman. The first man needs this interaction to go well. His entire week, maybe his entire month, hinges on whether she likes him. He's calculated his approach. He's overthinking every word. He's watching her face for signs of approval or rejection. He's not present. He's performing, desperately hoping for validation. What does she feel? Pressure, inauthenticity, neediness. Now the second man. He's complete. He woke up that morning content with his life. He's built something meaningful. He knows his worth, and he's genuinely curious about this person in front of him. But here's the key. If she's not interested, his life doesn't change. He's already good. He can appreciate her without needing to possess her. He can be genuine because there's nothing at stake except honest connection. What does she feel? Confidence, authenticity, strength. This is the principle the Stoics taught. Attachment versus appreciation. Attachment says, I need you to be happy. Appreciation says, I'm already happy, and your presence adds to that abundance. Attachment creates suffering because you're building your emotional state on something you can't control, another person's feelings, choices, and presence. Appreciation creates joy because you're valuing what's here right now without demanding it be permanent or different. Seneca put it beautifully when he talked about his closest friends. He loved them deeply, but he practiced a daily exercise. He imagined losing them, not in a morbid way, but as a reminder that nothing is permanent and nothing is truly ours. This practice did something unexpected. Instead of making him cold or distant, it made him treasure every moment with them more. Because he knew it was borrowed time, he didn't take it for granted. He didn't cling. He didn't try to control. He simply appreciated. Here's where people get this wrong. They think this philosophy means being emotionally distant or not caring about relationships. That's the complete opposite of what the Stoics taught. Marcus Aurelius loved his wife deeply. He was devoted to his children. Seneca had close friendships that lasted decades, but their love came from a place of strength, not weakness. They loved because they chose to, not because they needed to in order to feel complete. The practice here is simple but profound. Every morning, remind yourself of this truth. I am enough. Everything else is abundance. When you catch yourself needing external validation, when you feel that familiar desperation creeping in, pause, breathe, return to your center. Remember that you were complete before this person, and you'll be complete after them. This isn't about being cold. It's about being free. When you operate from this place, something magical happens. Relationships become enjoyable rather than stressful. You can be fully present because you're not constantly calculating and strategizing. You can be honest because you're not terrified of rejection. You can love deeply because you're not clinging desperately. You become the kind of man that people naturally gravitate toward because you offer something rare, genuine connection without the burden of neediness. But there's still one thing holding most men back from this freedom, one obstacle that keeps them trapped in the cycle of desperate seeking and inevitable disappointment. The obstacle isn't what you think. It's not that you lack confidence. It's not that you haven't found the right person. It's not even that you don't understand these principles intellectually. The real obstacle is invisible, woven into the very fabric of your reality, social conditioning. From the moment you could understand language, you've been programmed with a narrative. You are incomplete. You need to find your other half. You won't be truly happy until you have a partner. Success means having someone by your side. Being alone means you've failed. This narrative is everywhere. Movies, songs, advertisements, social media, well-meaning family members asking when you'll finally settle down. Let me tell you a story about Cato the Younger. He was one of the most respected senators in Rome, known for his absolute integrity and refusal to compromise his principles. When Julius Caesar was consolidating power and most of the Roman elite were scrambling to align themselves with him, Cato refused. Not because he was politically stupid, he knew it could cost him everything. He refused because he understood something deeper. Conforming to social pressure, even when everyone else is doing it, is slavery. Society has an investment in your neediness. Think about it. A man who is complete, who doesn't need external validation, who is content being alone, that man is difficult to manipulate. He doesn't buy products to impress people. He doesn't stay in jobs that violate his principles because he's afraid of being alone. He doesn't compromise his values to fit in. He's dangerous to a system that profits from insecurity, the narrative. That you're incomplete without a partner creates weakness. It makes you dependent on circumstances outside your control. It turns you into a consumer, constantly seeking products and experiences that promise to make you finally feel whole. It creates anxiety, depression, and a life built on the shifting foundation of other people's opinions. And most importantly, it prevents you from discovering your true strength. Here's what the Stoics understood. Virtue and character are the only real measures of a man, not his relationship status, not how many people desire him, not his ability to avoid being alone. When you build your identity on virtue, on courage, wisdom, justice, and self-discipline, you become unshakable. Social pressure loses its power because you're operating from a completely different value system. The practice here requires brutal honesty with yourself. You need to catch yourself in the act of conforming to external expectations. When you feel the urge to pursue a relationship, pause and ask, am I doing this because I genuinely want to share my life with this person, or am I doing this because I'm afraid of being judged for being alone? Am I acting from strength or from fear? Let me give you a specific example. A friend of mine was dating a woman who was objectively wrong for him. They had different values, different life goals, and honestly, they made each other miserable. But everyone around him kept asking when he was going to propose. His family loved her. His friends thought he was lucky. The social pressure to stay in that relationship was enormous. One night, he sat alone in his apartment and asked himself the hard question, if no one else existed, if no one would judge him, would he choose this? The answer was no. And that clarity gave him the courage to end it. His family was disappointed. Friends questioned his decision. For a few months, the social pressure was intense. But he'd discovered something more valuable than approval: freedom. He'd learned to distinguish between acting from fear of judgment and acting from genuine choice. That's power. So how do you actually live this? How do you build this kind of strength? Here's the practice the Stoics used every single day. The Stoics didn't believe in abstract philosophy. They believed in practices, daily disciplines that forged character, the same way a blacksmith forges metal. Here's the framework they used, adapted for your life right now. Every morning, before you check your phone, before you jump into the demands of the day, spend the first 15 minutes establishing your foundation. Sit quietly and remind yourself, I am complete. My worth doesn't depend on anyone else's opinion. Today, I will act according to my principles, not according to fear or desire for approval. This isn't just positive thinking. This is setting your philosophical operating system for the day. Throughout the day, catch yourself in the act of seeking external validation. It's subtle. You post something on social media and immediately check for likes. You send a message and obsessively watch for the reply. You make a decision and immediately look around to see if others approve. Each time you notice this happening, pause, breathe, redirect your attention to what you control, your choices, your actions, your character. This is the practice of bringing your attention back home, back to yourself. In the evening, before sleep, conduct a review. The Stoics called this the evening examination. Ask yourself 3 questions. Where did I act from strength today? Where did I act from fear or need? If I face similar situations tomorrow, how will I respond differently? Write this down. The act of writing transforms vague thoughts into concrete insights. Over time, you'll notice patterns. You'll see growth. You'll witness yourself becoming stronger. Here's a specific journaling prompt that will accelerate your development. Today, I caught myself seeking approval when... Complete that sentence honestly every evening. Then write, instead, I could have... This trains your mind to recognize the pattern in real time and creates new neural pathways for independent action. The Stoics also practiced a powerful visualization exercise. Once a week, sit quietly and imagine losing everything. Your status, your possessions, your relationships, imagine it all gone. Then ask yourself, who am I when everything external is stripped away? The answer to that question is who you really are. Everything else is decoration. When you can sit with that stripped-down version of yourself and find peace, you've achieved something profound. Now let me be clear about something important. This isn't about never having relationships. This isn't about becoming some isolated hermit who rejects human connection. The goal is to become the kind of man who can have deep, genuine relationships precisely because he doesn't need them to feel complete. He chooses them from abundance, not desperation. After 30 days of this practice, you'll notice specific changes. You'll stop checking your phone compulsively. You'll feel more grounded in situations that used to make you anxious. People will respond to you differently because your energy has changed. Opportunities will appear because you're no longer broadcasting neediness. Your decisions will become clearer because they're based on your values rather than fear. You'll sleep better because you're not spinning with anxiety about what others think. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his private journal words that were never meant to be published. Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul. This is the ultimate teaching. The fortress you're building isn't made of stone or relationship status or other people's approval. It's built in your mind, in your character, in your daily choices to act from strength rather than fear. So here we are. We've walked through the ancient streets of Rome with emperors and slaves who discovered something that modern culture desperately wants you to forget. You are already complete. The trap is believing you need someone else to validate your existence. The revelation is understanding that wholeness comes from within. The practice is daily discipline that forges unshakable character. This isn't theory. This is a path that transforms lives. Epictetus went from slave to one of history's most respected philosophers. Marcus Aurelius ruled the world while maintaining inner peace. Seneca faced death with courage because he'd built his life on principles, not on circumstances. They weren't special. They simply practiced these principles until they became second nature. Tonight, before you go to sleep, I want you to try something. Set aside 1 hour. Turn off your phone. Sit in silence with yourself. No distractions, no escape. Just you and your thoughts. It will be uncomfortable. That discomfort is the beginning of freedom. In that hour, you'll start to distinguish between who you really are and who you've been conditioned to be. What's possible for you? A life where you're genuinely confident, because that confidence comes from character, not circumstances. Relationships that are chosen, not needed. Days where you wake up with purpose rather than anxiety. Decisions made from strength rather than fear. A version of yourself that looks back at who you are now and barely recognizes that desperate seeking person. If this resonated with you, if you felt something shift while listening to this, then you're ready for more. Subscribe to this channel because we're going deep into Stoic wisdom that actually changes lives. We're not talking about theory. We're talking about practices that build the kind of strength that nothing can shake. Next video, we're diving into how the Stoics handled rejection, criticism, and betrayal without losing their peace. Trust me, you don't want to miss that one. Until then, remember what Marcus Aurelius wrote. Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking. That power has always been yours. It's time to claim it.